A few weeks ago, I took a road trip to visit some small farms in the Midwest. I thought it would be an easy assignment. I wanted to learn about rural life and gather stories for a feature. It had been over a decade since I started working as a journalist, but I guess I underestimated how strange these farms could be. I still can't shake off what happened. When I arrived at the first farm, I noticed an old scarecrow. Just some old clothes stuffed with hay. It looked tattered and worn. I could swear that every time I turned away, it had moved. Maybe I was just tired. I shook it off, blaming fatigue. At the second farm, laughter filled the air, but there were no children around. It felt off. A chill ran down my spine. I turned to an elderly woman tending her chickens. "Where are the kids?" I asked. She smiled at me with a distant look in her eyes. "Be careful around here," she warned. It sounded like she knew something I didn't. I tried to ignore my unease as I continued my journey. I snapped photos of old barns, but when I looked at them later, the images looked wrong. The barn seemed to change between shots. It had to be the camera, right? I rubbed my eyes, hoping to clear my head. I told myself I was fine and maybe I wasn't cut out for this kind of reporting anymore. Then there were the animals. I stood by a horse once, and it stared at a wall like it saw something there. A deep unease settled in my stomach. I wanted to connect with the animals and enjoy the view, but I felt more like an intruder. Local farmers gave me strange looks and whispered warnings. One man said, "This land has secrets, things best left alone." I felt a mix of skepticism and fear. Did he really mean it? I didn't know what to believe anymore. My heart raced. Was I losing my mind? After visiting the last farm, I stood in the middle of the field. I felt a strange pressure on my chest. It was as if eyes were watching me, but everyone else was just going about their day. That's when I heard it. "Max." The voice was soft but clear. I turned around, but there was no one behind me. I felt frozen. I didn't know what to do. Had someone called my name? Or was it my imagination? My thoughts raced as I looked back into the field. Everything felt wrong. Shadows seemed to shift just out of sight. I took a few steps back, shivering under the sudden weight of fear. Then, as I turned to leave, I felt that voice again, whispering through the wind. "Why did you come here?" I took a sharp breath. I had no answers. The question hung in the air as I walked away, my heart pounding. I couldn't shake the feeling that I had stumbled into something I was never meant to find. The farms faded behind me, but the unease lingered. I still wonder what truly lies in those fields. The next day, I tried to push the strange events from my mind. I needed a fresh start, so I drove to a coffee shop in a small town nearby. As I sat there, sipping my brew, I overheard two women at the next table discussing something intense. Their hushed tones made it hard not to listen. "I heard he's back," one said. "Really? I thought they'd finally got rid of him," the other gasped. Curiosity tugged at me. Who were they talking about? I shifted in my chair, wanting to lean closer. My journalistic instincts kicked in. If they said something worth investigating, maybe I could tie it into my piece. Just as I was about to ask, the door swung open. A man walked in, and their conversation dropped like a stone. The woman at the table turned pale. I scanned the man quickly, studying him. He wore a faded plaid shirt and had unkempt hair, but it was the look in his eyes that sent a wave of unease through me. Something about him felt off, like he belonged to the shadows I had felt in the fields. That he walked straight to the counter, ordered a drink, and didn't glance at anyone else. I watched as the two women exchanged worried looks before packing up and leaving. That I wanted to follow them, but instead, I glanced at the man again. Just then, he looked over at me. Our eyes locked for a moment, and an icy shiver followed. It was a feeling I couldn't shake, like I was being judged. I decided to leave, the coffee now tasting bitter in my mouth. Once outside, I stood for a minute, trying to gather my thoughts. I could feel the small-town eyes on me again, some familiar faces peeking out from behind curtains and shop windows. Panic twisted in my stomach as I navigated to my car phone buzzed in my pocket, breaking my spiraling thoughts. A text from my editor read, "Can you come back?" Something came up. I swallowed hard. I had barely finished the first leg of my assignment and didn't want to return just yet. But the nagging feeling in my gut pushed me to comply. Driving back was different. The road felt more confining. As I passed the last farm again, I noticed something new. Something glimmered in the field where I had heard the voice. My heart raced. I hesitated, then turned around, pulling off the road. The glimmer drew me in. Cautiously, I stepped closer, and that voice rang in my head, "Max." I looked around, heart pounding in my chest. The field was empty, but the glimmer continued to shine like a beacon. That's when I saw it, a small, tarnished locket lying half buried in the dirt. My fingers itched to pick it up, but a shiver raced down my spine. Was this part of the secrets the farmers warned me about? I hesitated, feeling eyes on me again, as if the entire farm was holding its breath. Before I could reach for it, I heard something behind me. Not a rustle or a whisper, but clear footsteps. I spun around, startled. What I saw made my heart race more than ever. A figure was standing on the edge of the field, watching me. The glimmering locket faded from my mind as dread filled the air. I wanted to run but found myself rooted to the spot. Who was this, and what did they want? I felt the tension rise, and then the figure took a step closer. I could hardly breathe as the figure advanced. My instincts screamed at me to flee, but my feet felt glued to the ground. The faint afternoon light cast long shadows, and the figure came into focus. It was the man from the coffee shop. His eyes were dark, almost hollow, and they bore into me with an intensity that left me unsettled. "You shouldn't be here," he said, his voice low but oddly smooth. "What do you mean?" My voice came out shaky despite my effort to sound calm. I glanced back at the locket, the urge to grab it tugging at me. "The past isn't gone," he continued, stepping even closer. "This place holds things you don't understand." My mind raced. The coffee shop, the women's whispers, all led to this. He was a piece of the puzzle, but what was he trying to warn me about? Why were they scared of you? I blurted out, my curiosity overpowering my fear. The man's lips curled into a half-smile that didn't touch his eyes. "They know. Just like I do." He gestured behind him toward the trees that lined the edge of the field. "You should leave before it's too late." I wanted to argue, to demand answers, but all I could feel was the rising tension coiling around me. I had landed in something much heavier than I had anticipated. Just as I opened my mouth to respond, the air shifted. A cold breeze rushed through the field, carrying an unsettling whisper that echoed around us. I felt it. The weight of secrets, of history pressing down on me. Something in me screamed to run, but I needed to know more. "What are you talking about?" I asked, desperation leaking into my tone. Before he could reply, a loud rustling erupted from the trees. I jumped as a figure burst from the underbrush. It was a girl, her eyes wide with panic. "Run!" she shouted, pointing at the man. "You have to run now." I was taken aback. Who was she? What's happening? The man's expression shifted, turning into a mask of irritation. "You need to listen to her," he said, but his tone was sharp. "They're coming for you." My heart raced. Coming for me? My mind spun with questions. Who were they? What did he mean? But before I could react, the girl grabbed my arm and yanked me towards the road. "Come on," she insisted. "There's no time. Trust me." I didn't have to think twice. I turned, breaking into a sprint with her, my instincts finally taking over. I could hear the man calling after us, but his words faded into the wind as my surroundings blurred. That we rushed along the path, the world around us disappearing in a whirl of panic and confusion. What is happening? I managed to gasp between breaths. She glanced back at me, eyes filled with a mix of fear and determination. I'll explain later. Just keep running. The trees loomed behind us, dark and unwelcoming, but something told me I needed to keep moving forward. Whatever secrets the farm held were now chasing us. The chase wasn't over yet. I stumbled along the narrow path, my lungs burning as I tried to keep up with the girl. She was quick, darting between the trees, and I could barely catch my breath. Fear clung to us like mist, thickening the air. "Who are you?" I wheezed, barely able to keep up. She didn't answer at first, her feet pounding the ground in a rhythm that felt frantic. "Just focus on running," she replied, her voice tight. "You'll be safe once we reach the old barn." The mention of a barn struck a nerve. Suddenly the man's warning replayed in my mind. What about the man? Is he just keep going? She interrupted, urgency spilling from her words. He'll try to stop you. He's not who he seems. That didn't help my racing heart. I had already felt the weight of secrets in his gaze. If he wasn't who he seemed, then who was he? I risked a glance behind us, half expecting to see him looming close, but the shadows remained just shadows that we pressed on, the trees starting to thin out ahead. A low growl broke the silence, a sound that sent prickles down my spine. It was followed by distant howls urgent, echoing through the dim light. What was that? I shouted, panic rising in my chest. It's them. She yelled back, glancing over her shoulder with wild eyes. They're sending something after us. My stomach dropped. This was all getting too much to handle. I needed answers. Who's coming for me? What do they want? Everything, she replied simply, urgency punctuating her words. We've disturbed something. The relic? I interrupted, though it felt like I already knew the answer. The locket? She nodded sharply. Yes. If they get their hands on it, we can't let that happen. In that moment, the path opened up, revealing a dilapidated barn looming in the distance, its facade worn and weathered. There! She shouted, darting towards it. I followed, the sound of howls getting closer. It felt like I could almost feel the breath of whatever was chasing us on the back of my neck. The barn door creaked loudly as we approached, and for a moment, I hesitated. What if something's inside? I asked nervously, glancing between the girl and the ominous shadows that flickered around us. But it's safer than out here, she urged. We can't let them find us. With no time to debate, I pushed the door open, the old wood protesting against the sudden movement. We slipped inside, and she pulled the door shut behind us, sealing out the growing chaos outside. Inside, the scent of mold and hay hit me like a wall. Shadows danced in the dim light, playing tricks on my mind. The girl turned toward me, her expression serious. We need to figure out what to do next. They'll be here any second. I took a deep breath, trying to calm the storm inside me. You said I needed to hold on to the locket. Why? What is it? Before she could respond, a loud crash resonated from outside, followed by frantic scratching against the wood walls. I felt my heart plunge. What's out there? That's when I noticed a glint of metal on the ground. I stepped closer to it, confusion washing over me as I realized it was part of a broken chain, similar to the one I had seen fastening the locket. Then a deep growl echoed from the shadows just beyond the barn, and I froze. Whatever was out there wasn't giving up easily. The hunger in its voice was unmistakable. And that's when I saw it. A glowing pair of eyes peering in through a crack in the barn wall. The hunt was just beginning. The eyes were haunting, unblinking and filled with a predatory hunger. I felt a chill creep down my spine as they lingered just beyond the narrow crack. My heart raced, each beat echoing louder than the last. Are they looking for the locket? I stammered, Trying to process the horror unfolding before me, she nodded, her face pale. Yes. And they will stop at nothing to get it. I needed to think fast. What do we do? Can we hide? No, she said, her voice steady despite the fear in her eyes. We need to draw them away from the barn. We can't let them find us here, not when we know what's at stake. Draw them away. How? My mind raced. I was still trying to keep up with everything happening around me. She scanned the barn as the scratching on the walls intensified, nails scraping against the wood like a horror movie soundtrack. There's a loft, she said quickly, pointing upward. If we can get up there, we can find a way to distract them. I didn't argue, I followed her lead, my instincts urging me forward. We hurried to the rickety ladder, both of us climbing quickly. I could hear the growls outside morphing into a chorus of howls, and the sense of urgency sent my stomach into knots. Once at the top, we crouched low, hiding in the shadows. I risked a glance out the window. My breath caught in my throat. A creature, an enormous, dark figure stood just outside, sniffing the air as if it could smell us. Its body was vaguely canine, but something about its shape felt wrong, distorted. What is that? I barely managed to whisper. It's part of them, she said. The ones hunting you. They weren't always like this. The relic changed everything. The weight of her words settled heavily in my chest. The locket, it can stop them, right? It can protect us, but we need to use it correctly. She reached into her pocket and pulled out a small piece of parchment. The edges were tattered, and I could barely make out the symbols etched into it. This explains how to activate its power, but we have to be ready to use it. I glanced out the window again. The creature was joined by more figures, prowling close to the barn, their eyes glowing like embers in the dark. We don't have much time, I said, panic seeping back in. What do we do? Stay quiet and wait for my signal, she instructed, her voice calm but urgent. When I say go, you run for the back. The locket has to be exposed to the moonlight. I nodded, my heart pounding in my ears as I took a deep breath, trying to calm my racing thoughts. Suddenly, the barn door creaked, and a wind gusted through the space, sending a chill racing through me. Then everything went dark. The lights flickered, and I heard the unmistakable sound of something heavy crashing through the barn door below. Now. Go. She shouted, and without thinking, I leaped down the ladder, adrenaline pushing me forward. My heart raced as I sprinted towards the back of the barn, praying the shadows wouldn't swallow me whole. But as I reached for the door, I froze in horror. Someone was inside the barn with us. I stared into the darkness, heart racing as I took in the figure standing just beyond the threshold. A tall man, or at least that's what I thought at first, but there was something off about him. His eyes glowed in the faint light, reflecting an unnatural brightness that made my stomach churn. What do you want? I managed to croak, the sound barely rising above the muted howls outside. That he didn't reply right away. Instead, he tilted his head like he was trying to hear something, too. Worry gnawed at me, but then I remembered the voices outside. Were they drawn to his presence, too? Are you with them? I asked, fists tightening at my sides. I'm not your enemy, he finally said, stepping closer. His voice was eerily calm. But you need to trust me. The locket is not what you think. My heart sank further. What do you mean? I know about the relic. He paused, glancing behind him. And I know how to protect it. But you must listen carefully. Something instinctual told me to run. I considered diving back the way I'd come, but the howling outside urged me to stay. I felt trapped, caught between a darkness I didn't understand and a man whose intentions were unclear. Why should I trust you? I spat, trying to sound brave despite my legs trembling. Because they will find you if you don't. They'll use you to get to the locket. His gaze shifted back to the door. And you do not want to be caught out here with them. I glanced over my shoulder, noticing the shadows were shifting. The figures outside were pressing close, their twisted shapes writhing against the wooden walls. The scratching resumed, more frantic now, like claws seeking entry. "We have to move." The urgency in his voice broke through my hesitation. "Move where?" I asked, still unsure. "Follow me." He gestured to a small trap door near the back of the barn, half hidden behind a stack of old hay bales. "If we get underneath, it will buy us some time." Before I could argue, he dashed towards it, and I scrambled after him. As we reached the door, I heard the barn door splintering behind us. The howls crescendoed into a deafening symphony. My heart raced, urging me to hurry that we tumbled down the steep, dark stairs. I could barely see, but he seemed familiar with the path, pulling me along. The damp, earthy smell was overwhelming, but I held my breath and focused on his footsteps ahead. "I can't believe you're here," he said, breathless. "You should never come to this part of the farm." "What do you mean?" I gasped. "The locket doesn't just protect. It binds you to this place. You opened a door that can't be closed." He glanced back toward where we'd come as heavy thuds echoed close behind. "We need to figure out how to use it, and fast." Panic clawed at me, but we had no time to lose. "How? What do we do?" "First, we need to find the moonlight." He pointed toward a faint glimmer at the end of the tunnel. "There's a way out." I followed him, urgency fueling my legs. But as we raced towards the light, something sharp scraped against the walls, making both of us freeze. Figures were closing in on us from the darkness, intent on stopping us before we could escape. That we had to move, but I couldn't shake the dread growing in my gut. How could we use the locket if we didn't understand its true power? And what if we couldn't find a way out? Then, as we pressed forward, I felt it. A shift in the air, a warning that something was about to break free into the tunnel. I clenched my fists, ready for what lay ahead. Light flickered at the end of the tunnel, a tease of safety that felt almost dreamlike. We raced toward it as if it could vanish at any moment. My heart pounded wildly, each echo of our footsteps a reminder of the urgency clawing at our backs. Suddenly, the air turned cold. I shivered, instinctively pulling closer to the stranger beside me. He must have sensed it too. I saw his breath condense in the chill. It was wrong. We shouldn't be feeling this in a place meant to shelter us. "Keep moving," he urged, urgency seeping into his tone, but just as we took a few more steps, a shadow loomed from the corner of my eye. It was large and dark, stretching across the walls like a predator waiting to pounce. My breath caught as the darkness shifted, revealing a pair of glowing eyes watching us. "There's no time," I shouted, my voice breaking the spell of fear. "They're coming. Don't look back." The man's command was sharp, and I forced myself to face the light ahead, but dread wrecked my focus. That we pushed on, the glow growing brighter, yet I could still feel the pulse of danger behind us. Each step became more frantic, the sound of claws scraping against the walls echoing like a death knell. Panic washed over me. What if it caught up to us? Then, just as the shadows seemed ready to swallow us whole, we burst into the light. The tunnel opened into a small clearing bathed in pale moonlight. I gasped at the sight, the eerie calm of the night contrasting sharply with the chaos we'd left behind. The air was crisp, and I could hear the distant whisper of the wind, but my relief was short-lived. The ground trembled slightly beneath our feet. I turned to the stranger, fear eclipsed by confusion. "What now? Where do we go?" He scanned the area, eyes narrowing. "The locket, it's essential we understand its nature. It thrives on moonlight. If we don't what?" I pressed, a knot twisting tighter in my stomach. "Then we lose every chance of being safe. We need to activate it while we're in the light. It might give us the power to bind them." "Activate it how?" The thought of relying on an object I barely understood was terrifying. My fingers itched at my sides, desperate for any kind of reassurance. "You'll know." He reached out, and I felt his warmth wrapping around the locket resting against my chest. Concentrate. Think of the safety it can provide. I closed my eyes, imagining the locket glowing, its energies rising like smoke into the air. The chills surrounding us sharpened, the shadows in the forest flickering at the edges of the clearing. I opened my eyes to see shadows shifting, gathering just beyond the tree line, their forms twisting in the darkness. Trust it, the man urged, his voice steady. You have to believe. But just as I was about to nod, a deafening howl erupted from the shadows, and the ground quaked violently beneath us. The figures darted toward us, eyes blazing with hunger. There was no time left. Now! He shouted, and I felt the locket vibrate against my chest, pulsing with an energy I couldn't comprehend. That I raised my hand, feeling the gravity of the moment, when suddenly everything went dark, the earth reformed around me like a whirlpool, and I found myself pulled into a new world, one enveloped in ash and shadow, leaving the clearing and the man behind. Stomach churning, I felt the weight of the locket like a chain around my neck, a tether to an unknown fate. I stumbled forward, disoriented. The world around me felt surreal, like I was trapped in a dream where nothing made sense. Ash swirled in the air, and the ground beneath me was rough, unyielding. I blinked to clear my vision, but the darkness pressed in from all sides, shadows moving just beyond the edges of my sight. Hello. I called out, my voice echoing in the stillness. It felt foolish to speak, but the silence was suffocating. I needed something, anything, to ground me. There was no response, only the whispered rustle of the wind through the ash. I took cautious steps forward, the locket at my chest pulsing gently. With every thud of its rhythm, I felt a faint warmth spreading across my skin. Maybe it was my only ally in this unknown place. That I squinted against the gloom, searching for signs of life. As I wandered further, I noticed faint shapes around me, almost hidden beneath the cover of ash. I crouched low and reached out to touch one, a twisted branch, gnarled and claw-like. My heart raced. Whatever this place was, it felt wrong, its energy heavy. Then, I heard it, a distant sound, soft yet insistent. It was a low hum, like a melody woven into the air. My instincts screamed at me to move away from it, but curiosity tugged me closer. As I approached, the sound grew clearer, morphing into a rhythmic chant. I stumbled upon a small clearing illuminated by an eerie glow. Figures danced in the ash, their shapes flickering like shadows playing hide-and-seek. They swirled around what seemed to be a makeshift altar, where the moonlight struggled to penetrate the dark. My pulse quickened. Were they the same predators I had fled before? Suddenly, the locket around my neck became unbearably warm, urging me forward. I hesitated, wondering if stepping into the light would bring about another moment of chaos. Still, another part of me felt drawn to it, like it was a key to understanding this bizarre reality. Join us, a soft voice beckoned, floating from the figures as they turned toward me. The warmth intensified, filling me with an urgency I couldn't ignore. Who are you? I managed to croak, my throat dry with fear. We are the lost, the voice replied, more confident now. And you are our chosen link. The locket binds you to us, a bridge between your world and ours. Only you can bring back the balance. The words hung heavy in the air, making my stomach drop. Why had this happened to me? I wanted to turn and run, but my feet felt glued to the ground. What balance? I asked, my voice shaking. Darkness threatens to consume life, and you have the power to stop it. They lifted their hands as if inviting me to join their strange ceremony. Fear and resolve clashed inside me. I couldn't just stand there and let it happen. But could I trust these figures? That's when I noticed on the altar something glimmering, a stone that looked almost like the locket but larger, radiating a bright light that fought against the shadows. Take it, the voice urged, desperation lacing the air. But as soon as I reached a hand toward the stone, the ground shook violently again, and the figures screamed. You must hurry. That's when I realized the world wasn't just at stake, my own fate tangled with theirs. My hand hovered above the stone as chaos erupted around me. What if I was too late? I felt the ground tremble beneath my feet, and panic surged through me. What were those figures so afraid of? I pulled my hand back, heart racing as the chaos intensified. The chanting turned frantic, higher in pitch, mixing with the sound of shifting earth, almost like a warning. Do not fear the light. The voice cried out again, but now it felt strained. It is your only hope. With another tremor, an explosion of ash erupted from the altar, swirling around me like a cyclone. Coughing, I covered my mouth, my eyes stinging. The figures seemed to lose their form, their bodies bathed in the ash storm. I could barely see my own hands in front of me. All at once, the atmosphere shifted, and I felt the locket cool against my chest, a stark contrast to the chaos around me. Then everything stopped. The air became still, as if holding its breath. I blinked through the dust, my eyes adjusting. I looked toward the altar, fearful of what I might find. The figures were gone, vanished like smoke. What just happened? I whispered into the silence, unsure of who, or what, might hear me. I stepped closer to the altar, unease creeping in with every step. Where had everyone gone? The stone remained, glowing softly now, its light pulsing gently as if it were alive. It called to me, almost imploring me to take it. Without thinking, I reached out again. The moment my fingers brushed the cool surface, a surge of energy coursed through me. It was like catching a breath I didn't know I was holding. Suddenly, images flooded my mind, snapshots of a farm, a barn, and creatures that looked both ordinary and strange. In my heart, I felt a connection form, a link to the figures, to the chaos, and to this place. It was as if the stone was revealing its truth to me, layer by layer. And then, just as quickly, the visions faded. I stumbled back, shaken. My pulse hammered in my ears. Why me? I shouted, more to the emptiness than anyone else. An unexpected crack reverberated through the ground, pulling my attention back to the altar. Something was emerging from the shadows, twisting and bending. The remaining light flickered dangerously. From the darkness rose a creature, tall and grotesque, formed from the very ash around me. It loomed closer, eyes glowing with a malevolence that made my stomach churn. It opened its mouth and let out a roar that rattled the earth beneath me like thunder. In that moment, I understood the gravity of my situation. There was no turning back. I needed to confront this thing. The fate of both worlds rested on the edge of my next decision. As it advanced, a surge of fear gripped me, but alongside it came a desperate clarity. This was the challenge I had to face. And the locket? Perhaps it was the only tool I had to fight back. Come on, I murmured to myself, gathering what little courage I possessed. You can do this. Then, I charged toward the creature, ready to break the silence of chaos that filled the space around me. I charged toward the creature, my heart pounding and every instinct screaming at me to turn back. But there was no turning back now. It was as if the weight of the locket at my neck was pulling me forward. The creature's form twisted, shifting as it closed in, a mass of darkness intent on consuming the last bits of light in this shadowy realm. Stop! I yelled, my voice echoing into the void. I raised the locket, its surface cold against my palm. I didn't know how to wield its power, but there was no time to question anything. As the creature stumbled, retreating slightly, I felt the warmth radiating from the locket intensify, its energy thrumming like a heartbeat. What do I do? I whispered desperately, glancing at the pulsing light of the stone on the altar. I remembered the figures, their urgency, their fear. They had wanted me to take the power of the stone. Maybe that was my answer. I stepped back, trying to focus on the light, but fear wrapped around me like shackles. A roar, guttural and deep, shattered the silence. I gripped the locket tighter and concentrated. The air felt thick, and my mind raced. It wasn't just a locket, it was a connection, a bridge to the other side. The idea pulled me back to the moment when I first stumbled upon it, its energy shimmering just beneath the surface of the dirt. Use it. A voice echoed in my mind, the same whisper I'd heard before. And suddenly, I understood. I would embody the barrier between darkness and light. With that thought anchoring me, I raised the locket higher. This ends now, I shouted, and an energy surged through me, radiating outward. I felt the world shift and stabilize, the energies in the air aligning. The shadows convulsed, pulling away as if they were trying to escape the force I was unleashing, and then it happened. The locket glowed bright, illuminating the space with a blinding light that shattered the darkness. The creature recoiled, its form writhing and contorting in agony as the light enveloped it. I focused all my fear, hope, and resolve into that light, feeling it pulse through me. The shadows around me twisted and shrieked, and in that moment, when the light and dark clashed, fear morphed into strength. One final burst of energy erupted from the locket, brighter than anything I'd ever felt. It blasted forward, slamming into the creature with a force that felt like a clap of thunder. The ground shook, and the light expanded, pushing back the darkness, closing the rift that had opened between our worlds. As the creature dissipated into ashes, I gasped, collapsing to my knees, heart racing, the air around me still pulsing with the aftermath of power unleashed. I could see the altar, the light of the stone now dimming, as if both worlds were settling into a fragile peace. The darkness receded, revealing edges of the world I had fought against, reshaping into familiar contours. The altar with the glowing stone appeared to fade, but a sensation of calm enveloped me like a warm blanket. But I was not alone. A figure appeared, stepping from the shadows, one of the dancers I had seen earlier. "You did it," they said softly, a serene expression washing over their ghostly features. "You restored balance to our worlds." The locket sealed the breach. But their tone shifted, reflecting uncertainty. "However, this peace is fleeting. The relic's power can only last for so long." A chill wrapped around me. I suddenly understood, I had won the battle but not the war. "What does that mean?" I struggled to keep my voice steady. "What happens next?" "In time, darkness may return," the figure replied, their voice like a whisper carried by the wind. "But for now, you have shown strength. You have a role in this, Max. The relic chose you for a reason." Before I could inquire further, the landscape around us began to dissolve into mist, the clearing fading. A tugging sensation pulled at my core, and everything went black, then light again. I was back in the field, the familiar sights of the farm around me, breathing heavily as I stumbled to my feet. The locket rested against my chest, its glow now a calm, steady warmth. A sense of relief washed over me, but it was quickly replaced by gnawing confusion. Had it been real? I glanced around, half expecting the shadows to return, but the field was empty and still. The sun hung low in the sky, casting long shadows, but there was an absence I couldn't shake. "Max?" A distant voice called. I squinted against the fading light to see the girl rushing toward me, her eyes wide with concern. "You made it." But just like that, I felt a weight settle over my heart. Had I truly escaped? The world felt unchanged, yet the secrets I had uncovered lingered in the atmospheric tension. I still had questions about the figures, the relic, and the man with hollow eyes. "I'm back," I said quietly, not quite believing it myself. She approached, taking in my disoriented expression. "You're safe. For now." I nodded, though unease rooted itself deep within. The locket felt heavy against my chest, a reminder that darkness might not be vanquished forever. As I took a deep breath, the inevitable questions swirled in my mind. What other secrets lay hidden in the shadows? I looked out toward the horizon, a sense of lingering doubt creeping in. It wasn't over, I could feel it in my bones. What I experienced changed my perspective forever, but did it solve anything? I would have to carry this burden into tomorrow. As I turned to leave the field, I could only hope that I wouldn't have to face the darkness alone again.